As of late, we've brought back a series on the channel that has literally been going on this channel for years, and that series would be Evolution. Now, this series is where we take an individual item within Call of Duty and look back through the history of COD and decipher where it came from and see how it got to where it is today. Now, in the past couple of episodes, we have looked at game modes, specifically party game modes, Infected, One in the Chamber, and today is no different. Today, we look at Prop Hunt. I thought this would fit since just recently, Prop Hunt was added into Black Ops 4. In fact, it was yesterday that it was added into the game. Now, as far as the Evolution series goes, I need your guys' input. First of all, if you enjoy this type of video and want to see more, the way to show me is simply hit that like button, and then it'll show me that I should make more of these based off of the amount of likes the video gets. Now, the second thing is, in the comments below, let me know what you'd like to see the evolution of next. It can be a weapon, it can be a game mode, it can be something else completely, like a score streak. But if you want to see it, let me know what it is down in the comments. But without further ado, I am going to shut up and let's dive in and look at the evolution of Prop Hunt. And honestly, this is one of the coolest evolutions I think we've done because it actually doesn't begin with a Call of Duty game. It begins with a completely different game altogether. The story of Prop Hunt begins with something called Garry's Mod. So what the hell is Garry's Mod? Essentially, this was something made by Valve that came out with Half-Life 2 that allowed users to kind of make their own game modes and discover their own things. The first big thing to be made by Garry's Mod was Trouble in Terrorist Town, which was a whole other game mode, and eventually Prop Hunt came to life within Garry's Mod. Well, you know how PC gamers work. Eventually, they took this same mod that was used in Garry's Mod and brought it into Call of Duty 4. So I guess technically the first version of Prop Hunt was for Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. However, it wasn't made by the developers. It was made by modders, and it was for PC only. Now, I'm not going to go into a huge amount of depth as to the details of this version of Prop Hunt, mainly because it was very different because, one, it was made by modders, two, it was on PC, so a lot of things were different. For example, you could choose exactly what object you wanted to be. It wasn't a random choice. However, from this, you can absolutely see the roots of Prop Hunt, where it came from, and how it got to where it was today. So the question is, what was the first official version of Prop Hunt added to a Call of Duty game? Oddly enough, once again, it was in Modern Warfare, but this time in Modern Warfare Remastered. So this was implemented in Modern Warfare Remastered on March 31st, 2017 until April 3rd, 2017. It was implemented in the Weekend Warfare playlist, which was basically a way of increasing their player base on weekends. And this was done several times, once again on April 28th, May 26th, and then eventually was added just as a regular game mode in the standard playlist. The interesting thing is, if you go and play Modern Warfare Remastered today, Prop Hunt is actually the fourth most popular game mode behind Team Deathmatch, Domination, and Search and Destroy, which is pretty crazy simply because it's just a party game. Now, how Prop Hunt would work is essentially there is two teams. One team is the prop and one team is the hunters. The prop's job is to stay alive for 3 minutes. The hunter's job is to hunt the props down before the end of that time. Now, right at the beginning of the game, there is a 30-second period that the props have to hide. During this time, the hunters are blindfolded and have a black screen. Now, once the props hide, they have a couple of options. They can run around like chickens with their heads cut off, trying not to get shot, or they can find a good hiding spot and lock in place. You see, if you press R2, you would lock to a wall. You could even jump up on a ledge, press R2, and kind of stay there. Each option was viable, but the problem is the hunters would be looking for you. Now, the hunters were equipped with a P90, a Desert Eagle, and a knife, and one stun grenade. Now, the part that made this difficult for the props is that every 20 seconds, everyone on the prop team would whistle, revealing where they are, and the hunter's job was to listen, figure out where that whistle was coming from, and hunt down those props. Now, the problem with Prop Hunt in this game is that if you managed to get a very small prop, it was very difficult for the hunters to actually shoot it because the props moved so fast. On top of that, the P90 isn't the most accurate weapon weapon of all time. That being said, it was definitely a bonus for those players who did have good aim and could pick off those small objects. Now, on top of being speedy, the props also had a flash that they could use to evade the people hunting them. And in Modern Warfare Remastered, this was the only other tool that the props had to escape. Now, the only other thing that's important to know is the main way of gaining XP in this game mode was either if you're the Seeker, destroying a prop, or if you were the prop, you actually got 100 XP for every 10 seconds you survived. Now, my biggest problem with this game mode in Modern Warfare Remastered was that 90% of the time, the prop team would actually win because of how quickly the props could actually move and evade the Seekers. And because of this, the way that it would work in this game is if each team won 2 rounds, the game would end in a tie, and I'm not really a big fan of tying, so that was my biggest problem with this one. But what's nice to see is that this problem was actually fixed in the next iteration of Prop Hunt, not in Black Ops 3, but rather in Call of Duty World War II. So Prop Hunt was introduced to Call of Duty World War II on January 23rd, 2018. This was the first day of the Resistance event in Call of Duty World War II. And I'm going to come out right out and say it, this is my favorite version of Prop Hunt in a full release Call of Duty game. This is for a few reasons. First of all, they nailed everything that Modern Warfare Remastered did. It's a very similar game mode, and they just kind of took it to the next level. One thing that I forgot to mention about Modern Warfare Remastered is that all of the props were directed towards the map that you were playing on. This is exactly the same with Call of Duty World War II to an even further extent. They really did personalize the item per map depending on what map you were playing. Now, I'm not going to go in depth explaining the entire game mode because it's very similar to what we saw in Modern Warfare Remastered. However, I will describe the details that have changed in this game. And really what it comes down to with World War II is the small details. For example, while the props are hiding, the hunters actually get a little mini game at the very beginning. When your screen goes black, if you tap triangle as fast as you can, your username will move up slowly on the screen until it reaches about halfway, and they will rank the winners at the beginning of the match. Just something like that, a super small detail, shows how much thought and effort they put into this game mode. Now, one thing I forgot to mention with Modern Warfare Remastered is that you were actually able to change your prop 3 times per game. This is the same in Call of Duty World War II. The big difference is in World War II, you could place decoys. You could actually place 3 items that look exactly the same to your item to kind of throw off your enemy. This was the first version of Prop Hunt to have it, and ever since then, every other version has followed suit with the decoys. Now, on top of that, and I think the best implementation in this version is the amount of XP and score you would get was based off of the size of item you were. For example, as you can see right here, I'm a telephone booth. That's considered to be an extremely large item. So for that, I would get more score and more XP. However, if I was something smaller, like a bucket or a hose, then I would be a small item and get less score and less XP. But another improvement in this game is the fact that it was very possible for the hunters to actually win. First of all, they gave you the Type 100, a very manageable weapon as far as recoil goes. On top of that, the props actually move slower in this game than every other version of Prop Hunt. Even if there's a very small item, it still moves slower than the other games, which makes it easier for the hunters. This means that less games would end in a tie, which I really did enjoy. On top of that, you simply couldn't tie. In this game, it was just the first team to 3 rounds won wins the game. So for all of those reasons, that is why this is my favorite variant of Prop Hunt. Now, you may be wondering why we haven't talked about Black Ops 3 yet, and that is because the version of Prop Hunt that came out in Black Ops 3 was actually released May 1st, 2018, after the release of Modern Warfare Remastered and Call of Duty World War II's versions of Prop Hunt. It's a little bit weird, but this game mode actually came out nearly 3 years after the original launch of Call of Duty Black Ops 3. Now, before this date, and actually all the way back into 2016, there was ways of playing Prop Hunt in Black Ops 3 via mods. However, it wasn't officially launched in the game until May 1st, 2018. So that is the version that we are going to be looking at. And once again, I'm not going to explain the whole game mode, just the things that change. So first of all, for the hunters, while you have the black screen in this game, there is no mini game like there was in Call of Duty World War II. In fact, there was a different mini game, in my opinion, a better mini game, where you could run around the map shooting these floating balls that resembled the uplink ball, and whoever shot the most was winning. You didn't win anything or get any points, but it was just for bragging rights. This was pretty cool. There is nothing like this in Black Ops 4, but don't worry, we'll get there. Now, aside from that, there wasn't a ton that changed compared to Call of Duty World War II. They are very similar, but there's a couple of big things. First of all, if you were a prop, you were only able to switch items twice as opposed to 3 times in all of the other modes. On top of that, if you were a prop, you were able to wall run, boost jump, and lock your item way up in the air up against a wall. This made it way more difficult for your enemies to actually be able to find you. On top of that, you'll notice by the gameplay here, if you were playing on Nuketown, you could only hide as a mannequin. To make up for this, instead of giving you 3 decoys, they gave you 10. The only other change that they made was actually for the hunters, and this is one thing that I wish they would have brought forward to Black Ops 4, but while you were hunting, you can actually press left bumper, and it'll tell your teammates to look in your direction because there is a prop around you. This is the only game to have this, and it's an awesome feature. It's a ping feature that I would also love if they would implement in something like Blackout as well. Now, the final version of Prop Hunt is in Black Ops 4, and quite honestly, this is probably the laziest version. It's basically a copy and paste from Black Ops 3 with some less features. For example, while the props are hiding, the hunters don't get a minigame. In fact, their screen isn't even blacked out, which kind of surprised me. On top of that, it is once again the same system where you can switch props 2 times in a given round, and unlike Black Ops 3, there is no boost jumps, wall runs, or anything like that. It is just normal, just like you were playing the game. There is once again the same Nuketown playlist where you have to hide as a mannequin and you get 10 decoys, very similar to what we saw in Nuketown in Black Ops 3. And that is pretty much it. There's no new features or anything like that, and nothing new implemented. That is Prop Hunt, and that is the evolution of Prop Hunt. So what I want to hear down in the comments is, what is your favorite version of Prop Hunt? As I mentioned before, mine was Call of Duty World War II. I think they did a really good job with it, but if you disagree, feel free to let me know down in the comments. And as I said before, if you do enjoy this series, if you like this type of video and want to see more, be sure to hit that like button, as it shows me that you enjoyed the video. And if you like what you see here and you want to stay up to date on all my videos, make sure you hit that subscribe button, make sure you have notifications turned on. And until next time, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video, and peace out.
We are reaching for